Okay, let's zoom all the way out. I want to start with a premise today that feels, honestly, a little unsettling, but it is also incredibly important for us to grapple with right now.
It's a premise that I think is sitting just under the surface for a lot of people.
It really is.
Yeah.
We are living through this specific moment in history where knowledge is exploding. I mean, look at it. Between the internet, big data, and now the absolute acceleration of AI, we have access to more raw information in a single second than our ancestors had in their entire lifetimes. That is just the reality of the interface we use every day.
It is. We are effectively drowning in data. We are swimming in a sea of knowing, or at least accessing facts. It's an ocean of information, and we've been given a thimble to drink it with.
A thimble. That's a great way to put it. But here is the tension, and this is really what we're going to be exploring in this deep dive. While that knowledge is growing exponentially, wisdom true, deep understanding seems to be becoming scarce.
It's not just scarce. It feels like it's in retreat.
Exactly. There is this widening gap. And the sources we have today suggest that this gap isn't just an annoyance, it's a civilizational risk. But here is the curveball, the thing that bridges that gap, the thing the sources say actually stabilizes us. It isn't more tech, it isn't a better algorithm.
No.
It's art, it's craft, it's the formation of conscience.
And we have to be very, very careful right from the jump with how we define those terms, because I know what happens when most people hear the word art. They think of decoration. They think of entertainment.
Something to pass the time.
Exactly. Something you hang in a corporate lobby to match the sofa, or something you binge watch on a Friday night to turn your brain off.
Right, the pretty picture theory.
Or just distraction.
Precisely. And if that is your definition, if you think art is just icing on the cake of civilization, then what we are about to discuss will make absolutely no sense. It'll sound completely abstract.
It'll sound elitist, even.
It might. But if you look at the research and the philosophy we have in front of us today, you realize that art is actually defined as an ontological revelation. Ontological revelation. That is a heavy phrase to drop in the first 2 minutes, but let's unpack it immediately because it's fundamental to this entire discussion.
It is. Ontology is the study of being, of reality, of what is fundamentally real. So when the source says art is an ontological revelation, it means that art is a mode of knowing. It's a diagnostic tool.
So not just a way of feeling, but a way of knowing.
A way of knowing, yes. It reveals what is actually real to a society. It shows us what we value, what we fear, what we worship, and ultimately who we are. It's not the icing on the cake, it's the Geiger counter for the soul of the culture.
So if the art is hollow, the civilization is hollow.
That is the implication. And the mission for this deep dive is really a civilizational briefing. We aren't just talking about painting or poetry for the sake of a hobby. We're looking at how art, craft, and conscience act as stabilizers in a high-tech, high-speed society.
Because the central argument here, and it is a stark one, is that the loss of craftsmanship, the move toward effortless, instant, AI-generated creation, signals a dangerous loss of meaning.
And if we lose meaning, all that high-tech processing power just accelerates our decline. It becomes an engine for fragmentation.
It's like having a Ferrari engine in a car with no steering wheel.
Or a car with no driver. A car that's programmed to just go faster regardless of the cliff up ahead.
So we have a massive narrative arc to cover today. We're going to go from the neuroscience of creativity, what's actually happening in your brain when you engage with art, to the philosophical definitions of good and evil in art, which is a rabbit hole I'm excited to go down.
A very deep rabbit hole.
And finally, we're going to land on a practical roadmap, how to navigate this AI era without losing our humanity.
It is the difference between information and wisdom. That is the thread we need to pull on through this entire conversation.
Let's start with the context building then, the world we are entering right now. We touched on AI, but let's dig deeper. The environment is defined by acceleration.
It is the acceleration of information, but specifically, it is the fragmentation of attention. We are inundated with quick snippets, fleeting communication. The sources describe this as a shift toward a culture of immediacy.
And immediacy is addictive, isn't it? The instant gratification.
It's highly addictive, and the danger there is that technology, and specifically AI, amplifies human intent. This is so critical. It doesn't replace human nature. It acts as a magnifier.
That's a crucial distinction. I think people fear that AI is going to come in and replace us, like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. But you're saying it's more like a mirror or a megaphone.
It is lever. A massive planetary scale lever. If our intent is shallow, technology allows us to be shallow at an industrial scale. If our intent is to deceive, we can now deceive globally in milliseconds. If our intent is to find connection, it can help with that too. But the system isn't neutral.
How so?
Because the platforms that deliver this technology are optimized for certain outcomes. They're optimized for engagement. And what is most engaging in the short term?
Novelty, shock, outrage.
Exactly. Not depth, not nuance. The risk, as highlighted in the source material, is that as we prioritize speed, novelty, and viral replicability, we risk flattening meaning.
Flattening meaning. That is a visceral image. Like a steamroller going over our culture, pressing all the beautiful, complex textures into a single smooth, boring surface.
Think about it. Meaning requires depth. It requires context. It requires history. It requires seeing how things connect. Speed requires the opposite. Speed wants to strip away the context so the data packet can travel faster.
Right.
The algorithm wants light, fast, and frictionless, so we strip away the drag.
But the drag, the weight, is where the meaning lives.
It's exactly where it lives. It's the struggle. It's the complexity.
You just said a key word there, friction. Because one of the sources makes this fascinating point about friction. We usually think of friction as bad. We want an app that works instantly. We want food delivered instantly. We want the answer instantly. We want a frictionless experience.
It's the holy grail of user interface design.
Right. But historically, mastery requires friction.
That is the core paradox of our time. The democratization of creation via technology is, in many ways, a good thing. It allows more voices to be heard. It lowers the bar for entry.
Which is great.
In principle, yes. But when you remove the struggle of creation, when you remove the years of learning to mix paints, or the discipline of learning to write a coherent paragraph because an LLM can do it for you, you are removing the very process that forms character. You are removing the struggle that builds wisdom.
So we're getting the output without the transformation.
Perfectly said. You're getting the artifact without the artist's journey. You are moving from a culture of mastery, which values the struggle, to a culture of immediacy, which only values the result.
And the economic reality of this is stark. We have to talk about this. If AI can generate the result, the image, the text, the code instantly, and for almost no cost, then the result itself becomes a commodity.
It becomes devalued, it's cheap, it's everywhere.
So what's left for humans? What is the value proposition of a human being in that economy?
Meaning-making, story integration, ethical judgment, symbolic thinking. These are the skills that are strengthened by artistic practice. These are the things that require friction.
The slew twitch muscles of the mind.
That's it. In an AI-saturated economy, the most durable human advantage is the ability to determine why something matters, not just how to produce it. The machine can produce the what and the how. It cannot, at least not yet, produce the why.
So art isn't just a nice to have, it's the gym where we build the muscles that AI can't replicate.
Exactly. If you want to be robot-proof, you have to be more human. And art is how we practice being human. It's the training ground.
Let's dive into the core analysis now. I want to go back to that phrase, art as ontological revelation. This gets into the philosophy of the deep dive, and it's so important to get this right. We have this source that talks about a privation-based ontological framework. Now, for the listener who didn't major in metaphysics, and I include myself in that group, can we break that down?
We must. It sounds complex, but it's actually quite intuitive once you see it. Privation essentially means a lack or an absence. The classic philosophical definition, going back to Augustine and others, is that evil is not a creative force equal to good.
So it's not a cosmic battle between two equal superpowers.
No, that's dualism. This framework says that evil is the absence of good. It is a distortion, a corruption, or a twisting of something that was originally good.
So using a physical analogy, darkness isn't a thing that you add to a room. You can't have a bucket of darkness and pour it out.
You can.
Darkness is just what happens when you remove the light.
Precisely. And cold is the absence of heat. Silence is the absence of sound. Rot is not a substance you add to a tree. It is the degradation of the tree's health. A hole in your shirt isn't a thing. It's a lack of shirt.
Okay, I'm with you. So now apply this to art.
If creativity, in its healthiest form, flows from our capacity to perceive order, beauty, and truth, the good, then ugly or evil art, isn't a creative opposite. It's not an equally valid mode of creation. It is a distortion. It reflects a loss of meaning, a fragmentation, or a disconnection from reality.
That is a powerful diagnostic tool.
Yeah.
Because we see a lot of art or content, really, that feels disjointed, chaotic, or purely shocking. And this framework suggests that isn't a new reality being created.
No, it's a symptom.
It's a symptom of a reality that is breaking down. It's a photograph of the rot.
It is a symptom of what the sources call ontological drift, a drift away from what is real and true. Great art does not invent reality. It discloses it. It pulls back the curtain on what is true, even when that truth is painful.
And this leads us to the crucial distinction between tragedy and nihilism, because I can hear the objection coming. Are you saying art should just be happy sunshine and rainbows? Is anything sad evil?
Right. It's a very important objection to address.
Because Hamlet is sad. Schindler's List is devastating. Are those privations? Are they bad art?
Far from it. They are profoundly good art. Healthy art integrates suffering. It looks at tragedy. It stares into the abyss. But it does so within a larger narrative of restoration or meaning. It exposes the darkness to light in order to contextualize it.
How so?
It says this suffering matters. This loss is a tragedy because what was lost was valuable. Schindler's List is horrifying, but it's not nihilistic. It affirms the infinite value of human life by showing us the profound evil of its destruction. The grief you feel proves the goodness that was lost.
I see. So the darkness in the art serves to highlight the light.
It does. Nihilism, on the other hand, presents the darkness as the only reality. It says, there is no meaning, only suffering, nothing matters. That is the privation. That is the absence of the good. It's the worldview of the hole in the shirt. It mistakes the absence for the substance.
So if I'm watching a movie or looking at a painting that explores deep grief, that can be good art if it's honest about the human experience and contextualizes it. But if it's just wallowing in shock value or hopelessness for the sake of it, it's ontologically hollow.
Correct. It fails to reveal the fullness of reality. It gets stuck in the distortion. It's the difference between a doctor diagnosing a wound to heal it and someone just pointing at a wound and saying, look how gross that is. One is oriented toward health and truth. The other is oriented toward the rot itself.
This connects directly to the neuroscience aspect.
Yeah.
Because we aren't just floating brains in a jar. We are biological creatures. We have sources here discussing how art literally forms the mind. It's not just a metaphor.
No, it is physiological. This is what one source calls cognitive expansion. When you engage with art, whether creating it or deeply appreciating it, you are lighting up brain regions responsible for pattern recognition, emotional processing, and narrative construction. You're forging new neural pathways.
So it's like a workout for your brain.
It's precisely a workout. You are building cognitive resilience.
I love that term. Cognitive resilience. It sounds like armor for your brain. What does it mean in practice?
It is armor. Think about what art requires of you. It requires you to tolerate ambiguity. A piece of music or a complex novel doesn't always give you a clear binary answer. You have to sit with the tension. You have to interpret symbols. You have to hold multiple, sometimes conflicting ideas in your head at once.
Which is the opposite of what a social media feed asks of you.
The absolute opposite. The feed wants a binary yes or no, like or dislike. In a world of algorithms that want to flatten complexity, the ability to handle nuance is a superpower. It's what separates a leader from a drone.
And that's crucial for decision-making, right? I mean, for leaders, for parents, life is rarely binary.
Life is almost never binary. Life is ambiguous. If your brain is trained only on quick, clear-cut data snippets, tweets, headlines, 15-second videos, you will panic when faced with complexity. You will demand a simple answer where there isn't one.
You'll look for a villain and a hero.
You will, and you'll misdiagnose the problem entirely. Art trains you to sit in the complexity and find the pattern. It builds the callus of patience in the mind.
And then there's the catharsis element. We touched on this, but the idea that art allows for a safe encounter with internal reality.
This is deeply therapeutic. We all have complex, sometimes dark internal feelings, grief, rage, confusion, jealousy. In a society that demands we be fine all the time, where do those feelings go?
You suppress them.
You suppress them. If they remain unexpressed, they fester, they become toxic, they come out sideways. Art provides a vessel, it provides a safe container for dangerous emotions. It allows us to process and release those feelings, as the source says. It allows us to name the darkness.
And once you name it, you have power over it.
You do. It's like exorcism through expression.
A secular exorcism.
In a sense, yes. It is externalizing the internal chaos so that we can look at it, understand it, and integrate it. Without that outlet, the chaos stays inside. And a person full of internal chaos is not a stable member of a society.
But, and here's the pivot, we are seeing an erosion of the very thing that makes this possible. We're seeing an erosion of craft. This is the degeneration segment of our analysis. Source 3 comes in pretty hot on this topic.
It does, and this is why the economic incentives clash directly with human and civilizational needs. We are seeing a profound shift toward art as a commodity. When art is driven purely by market trends and profit, the goal changes.
From what to what?
The goal is no longer revelation of truth. The goal is attention capture.
And how do you capture attention in the modern economy? In a sea of infinite content.
Speed, shock, virality. You have to be louder, faster, more extreme than the person next to you.
Exactly. And the algorithm trap is real. We've all felt it. If you optimize your work for an algorithm, you're optimizing for metrics. Clicks, shares, watch time. But meaning density, how much wisdom is packed into the work, often requires time to digest.
It's almost inverse to virality.
It doesn't always click well.
Yeah.
So the market incentivizes shallower work.
The source material has a great line. Work built for algorithms ages at the speed of algorithms.
Which is to say, it becomes obsolete instantly.
Yeah.
It's disposable. A mayfly.
It is the difference between a meal that nourishes you and a sugar rush. Viral content is a sugar rush. It spikes your dopamine, it gives you a quick hit, but it leaves you empty and hungry 10 minutes later. Deep craft is protein. It builds muscle over time.
But there is another factor here beyond the market. There's sanitization. The fear of controversy.
Oh, this is huge, and it comes from all sides. The fear of offending anyone results in everything looking and sounding the same.
It leads to what the source calls homogenized messaging, self-censorship. When artists are afraid that a complex exploration of a difficult topic will get them canceled or demonetized,
They retreat. They retreat to the safe middle. Art becomes decorative. It becomes politically correct in the broadest sense, not just politically, but socially safe. It stops challenging us.
and it stops being transformative. It just becomes background noise. Pleasant, maybe, but ultimately meaningless.
It becomes beige wallpaper. And a civilization cannot navigate its future if its map. Its art is just a blank beige wall. It tells you nothing about the terrain ahead.
And this is coupled with the loss of craftsmanship itself, the
Yeah.
actual physical skill. The shift from mastering techniques, colors, composition perspective, the physical discipline of a musician, to digital manipulation and prompt engineering.
Yeah.
Now, we must be nuanced here.
Yes.
Digital art is art.
Okay.
But if the tool does the heavy lifting, if the AI generates the image from a phrase,
The artist loses the friction. And as we said, the friction is where the character is formed. The friction is where the wisdom is forged.
it's the difference between hiking up a mountain and taking a helicopter to the top. You both see the view, but the person who hiked it is a different person when they arrive.
A perfect analogy. The hiker understands the mountain. They know its contours, its dangers, its beauty in an intimate way. The passenger just consumed the view. The hiker has changed their body and mind to get there. The passenger has just swiped a credit card. We are becoming a civilization of passengers.
Let's move to how art functions as history, because we often think of history as facts and dates.
Yeah.
But the sources argue that art is history's witness. This is about civilizational memory.
This is crucial. History tells us what happened. Art tells us what it felt like. That is the fundamental distinction. You can read the economic data of the Great Depression unemployment rates, GDP drop. That is data. It's important.
It's abstract.
It's abstract. But then you look at Dorothy Lange's photography. Look at the face of the migrant mother.
I can see that image in my head right now. The
Yeah.
worry lines, the children hiding their faces, the sheer exhaustion in her eyes.
Exactly. That image conveys the experience of the poverty in a way that a spreadsheet never, ever could. And that experience is what actually drives policy. It's what drives empathy. It humanizes the statistic and turns a number back into a person.
Without the art, the history is sterile. It's just numbers. It has no moral weight.
It has no soul. Another example mentioned is August Wilson's Pittsburgh Cycle.
Right, the series of 10 plays, each set in a different decade of the 20th century.
An absolutely monumental achievement. He didn't just document African-American history. He made the experience of race, identity, and struggle experiential for the audience. He preserved a cultural heritage not in a textbook, but in living, breathing emotion, language, and music.
So if you lose the plays, you lose more than just a story.
You lose the feeling of that era. You lose the emotional memory of a civilization. You lose the wisdom that was encoded in those experiences.
And monuments do this too. The Vietnam Veterans Memorial is mentioned in the sources.
Mhm.
That is a fascinating example because it's so abstract. It's a black wall in the ground.
A profound example. It is not just a list of names on a spreadsheet or a heroic statue of a general on a horse. It is a scar in the earth. That was the design genius of Maya Lin.
A scar.
Yes, the polished black granite, the way it descends into the ground, the reflection of your own face as you look at the names, that is art forging an emotional connection to the past that a history book simply cannot achieve. It forces you to confront the weight of the loss. It forces you to see yourself in the loss.
It physically situates you in the history. It's not something you're just observing from a distance.
Yes, and that is what the best art does. It collapses time. It brings the past into the present and makes it real. It reminds us that these were people, just like us.
We've talked about art broadly, but I want to drill down into the specific forms mentioned in the deep dives because each one has a specific power. Let's start with writing. The source calls it structured self-revelation.
Writing is unique because it forces chaotic thought into linear order. You cannot write a coherent sentence without organizing your mind. It clarifies the moral structure of your thinking. It forces you to define your terms.
It's hard to lie to yourself when you write it down. The contradictions become so obvious on the page.
It is. The page is a harsh mirror. And, crucially, writing transfers wisdom across time with incredible fidelity. It is the primary way we converse with the dead. We can read the thoughts of people from 2,000 years ago. Marcus Aurelius is speaking to us. The Bible is speaking to us. Plato is speaking to us.
And for the professionals listening, one of the sources explicitly says that writing is a high-leverage practice. It's not just for novelists or poets.
Absolutely. This is a practical tool. Source recommends 10 to 20 minutes of structured, reflective writing to improve decision-making clarity. It's a tool for thinking. If you can't write it down clearly, you probably don't understand it yet.
I've heard CEOs say that. If you can't explain your strategy in a one-page memo, you don't have a strategy.
That's it exactly. If you are a leader and you are confused, stop talking and start writing. Clarity will emerge from the friction of forming sentences.
Then there's music. The architecture of emotion. I love that phrase.
Music bypasses the rational filters. You can argue with a book. You can analyze a painting and say, the perspective is wrong. It is very hard to argue with a melody. It hits the limbic system directly. It encodes cultural identity.
Think about national anthems or hymns or folk songs.
Or protest songs. Think about the civil rights movement. It wasn't just speeches. It was "we shall overcome." It was the spirituals. The music carried the resilience and the hope of the culture when words alone were not enough.
And it can be used for protest, like Bob Dylan. It mobilizes people.
It synchronizes people. It puts everyone in the same emotional state at the same time. That is a unifying force that is almost magical. It builds social cohesion in a way that almost nothing else can.
Finally, design and environment. This one is interesting because we often ignore our surroundings. We think, oh, it's just a room. We see it as neutral.
But we shouldn't. It's never neutral. The spaces we inhabit regulate our mood, our thoughts, our interactions. The source mentions whimsical, eclectic art and intentional environments. Think about the difference between working in a sterile, gray, fluorescent-lit cubicle farm versus a well-designed space with natural light, art, and plants.
The first one feels like a cage. It puts you in a defensive posture.
It does. It dampens social openness. It encourages you to be a cog in a machine. But if a space is vibrant, intentional, and human, if it has whimsy, as the source says, it increases creativity and connection. We are organisms. We respond to our habitat. If we build habitats that look like machines, we will start to think and feel like machines.
So we've laid out the philosophy, the neuroscience, the history, and the forms. This is a lot to take in. Now, I want to get practical.
Yeah.
Because the listener's sitting there thinking, okay, I buy it. Meaning is important. But I have a job, I have kids, I have a busy life. What do I actually do? Let's look at the real-world application layer.
This is the most important part. We have to bring it down from the 7,000-foot view to the ground. Let's break it down by who you are.
Okay, let's start with creators. And I think in the age of social media, a lot of people are creators, even if they don't call themselves artists. If you post online, you're creating something.
If you are making things, blogs, videos, code, presentations, even just emails, the first rule is purpose before platform. You have to ask, what reality am I revealing? What truth am I trying to share? Rather than what will go viral, what will get the most likes.
That requires a lot of discipline. It requires ignoring the dopamine rush of the metrics.
It does. It's a form of resistance. But remember, viral moments decay. Mastery compounds. You should be creating for 20 years from now. Ask yourself, will this still make sense in a decade? Or is it a joke based on a meme that will die next week?
And that means pursuing what the source calls slow skill development.
Yes, don't let the AI do the heavy lifting of the learning process. Use the tools, of course. They are powerful. But do not outsource your own development. The struggle is the point. That's where your unique voice is born.
Okay, what about parents and educators? This feels high stakes. My kids are glued to screens. Many of our listeners are in the same boat.
It is the highest stakes because you are shaping the next generation's imagination. The first step is taste formation. It begins early. You must expose children to high craft art.
So not just the algorithmically generated cartoons on YouTube with the weird colors and repetitive songs.
Please no. That is the mental equivalent of junk food. Show them things that were made with difficulty and intent. Show them hand-drawn animation from Studio Ghibli. Show them classic films, play them complex music, read them books with beautiful language.
And more importantly, the sources say, encourage active creation over passive consumption.
This is the absolute key. The difference between watching a video of someone building Legos and actually building the Legos yourself is the difference between life and death for the imagination.
That's a strong statement.
I mean it. Sketching, building, writing stories, playing an actual instrument where you have to struggle with the notes. This builds that cognitive flexibility and resilience we talked about. Passive media consumption weakens the imagination. Active creation strengthens it. If a child spends their whole life consuming, they will not develop the muscles to create their own future.
And for the professionals, the leaders, the people running companies making decisions.
2 things. First, adopt the practice of writing as thinking. We touched on this. Use that 10-20 minutes a day to clarify your mind. It will be the highest ROI activity you do. Second, recognize that artistic literacy, the ability to synthesize disparate ideas, to frame a compelling narrative, to understand ethical complexity, this is your economic insulation.
Meaning, the robot can crush the numbers, but the robot can't tell the story of what the numbers mean for the company's future.
Correct. Automation comes for the repetitive and the binary. It comes for the task. It cannot easily replace the synthesizer of meaning. The person who can look at the data, look at the human context, and say, this is the right path, and here is the story of why. That is the leader of the future. That skill is priceless.
This brings us to the civilizational warning. We've hinted at it, but let's look it in the eye. What happens if we ignore all this? What is the real risk of ontological drift?
The warning is that civilizations rarely collapse overnight. They don't explode. They erode. They decline through a loss of shared reality. A loss of a common story about what is good, true, and beautiful.
The erosion of meaning.
Yes. When art fragments, when it becomes nothing but shock, novelty, or empty decoration, it is a signal. It's the canary in the coal mine. It signals that we have lost our metaphysical grounding. We don't agree on what is true anymore.
And there is a feedback loop, isn't there?
A powerful one. The source lays it out clearly. Art shifts the imagination. A culture can only build what it can first imagine. Imagination shifts values. What we see as beautiful or heroic in our stories becomes what we value in our lives. Values shift institutions. Our courts, our schools, our governments reflect what we value. And eventually, institutions shift laws.
So if the art becomes shallow,
the civilization follows. If we cannot imagine deep, complex, restorative justice in our stories, we will not build it in our courts. If we cannot imagine nuance in our films, we will not tolerate it in our politics. We will demand the binary. We will demand the simple villain and the simple hero. And that leads to polarization and collapse.
and the danger of sanitized art fits in here too, the beige wallpaper we talked about.
It does,
Yeah.
because if we fear offense so much that we remove all the rough edges from our art, we lose the ability to engage in introspection. We stop questioning ourselves. We become fragile. A society that cannot handle dangerous art is a society that cannot handle dangerous ideas. And that is a society that cannot adapt. It will break under pressure.
That is a sobering thought, that the softness of our art predicts the brittleness of our society. But we promised a hopeful resolution. We aren't ending on the collapse of Rome here.
No, because recovery is always possible. Human agency is the critical variable.
The premise is, meaning is not something we invent out of thin air, it's something we rediscover.
That is the anchor. If you believe, as the sources suggest, that there is an order to the universe, truth, beauty, goodness, then we don't have to create it from scratch. We don't have to be gods. We just have to clear away the debris. We have to recover our sight. We have to recover the craft.
And the sources give us a definition of excellence to aim for, kind of three-legged stool for good creation.
Yes. If you want to know if you are on the right path, as a creator or a consumer, look for these 3 things integrated together.
Technical competence, Respect your subject and your audience enough to be good at what you do. Don't be sloppy. Master your tools.
Emotional resonance. Connect to the lived human experience. Don't be a robot. Feel something and make your audience feel something true. And 3, the most important, authentic purpose. Aim to reveal truth, not just produce a reaction. Aim for revelation, not just virality.
And this brings it back to the agency of the individual. We aren't helpless here. We aren't just victims of the algorithm.
Not at all. We can curate with intention, as one source put it. We can choose what we look at, what we listen to, what we read. We can choose to support artists who strive for this authenticity. We can vote with our attention and our wallets.
And we can use our own words and creations to bridge gaps.
Every time you write a thoughtful email instead of a hasty one, every time you choose a complex film over a mindless one, every time you encourage your child to draw instead of scroll, you are participating in recovery. You are casting a vote for a more human future.
You are exercising the muscle.
You are stabilizing the civilization one small act at a time. It's not about one grand gesture. It's about millions of small intentional acts of creation and appreciation.
So let's wrap this up, the final takeaway. We started by saying there is a gap between knowledge and wisdom.
And the conclusion is that civilizations are not saved by information alone. We have enough information. We are drowning in it. Civilizations are stabilized by meaning, and meaning is transmitted through story, image, sound, and form. That is the function of art. It is the immune system of the culture.
So here is the challenge for the listener, and this is the actionable insight we want to leave you with. This week, engage in one act of high-friction creation or appreciation.
Don't just scroll. Write a letter by hand. Listen to a piece of music that is complex. Maybe classical, maybe jazz, maybe a full album from start to finish without doing anything else.
No multitasking.
No multitasking. Go to a museum and look at a single piece of art, one painting, one sculpture, and stand in front of it for 20 minutes.
20 minutes. That feels like an eternity in 2026. People will think you're crazy.
It will feel like an eternity for the first 5 minutes. You will want to check your phone. You will be bored. Your mind will race. But push through. See what happens when the boredom wears off and the seeing begins. Do it not for entertainment, but to exercise the muscle of meaning-making.
That's the mission. A workout for the soul.
And remember our final thought, a guarded optimism. As long as human agency remains intact, and as long as we continue to participate in that deeper order of creativity, the dehumanizing effects of technology can be counterbalanced. We have the antidote, we just have to choose to take it.
You have to pick up the brush, or the pen, or the instrument.
Exactly, or simply learn to see again.
This has been a fascinating deep dive. It's changed how I'm going to look at my Spotify playlist this afternoon, that's for sure. And maybe I'll dig out that sketchbook I haven't touched in 10 years.
Good. That's the start.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Go make something real.